Meeting to order. Thank you all for showing up on this nice, bright, sunny, cold morning. We have a couple of votes we have to do today, so I want to make sure we do a roll call and make sure we have everyone down for attendance. Carrie, you all right? No, you.
What?
Oh, no, we were just talking.
Listen, I'm busy with Bill.
It doesn't have to be a roll call.
What's he
Okay.
We're just doing it.
Making sure you're okay. Okay, so I have myself, Dr. Papish, Dr. Assad. It's Chung, right?
Yes.
Okay. And, oh goodness, Dr. Vora. And you're, is it Dietrich? Rabich. Oh my goodness, how could I screw that up? Sorry, Dr. Rabich. Dennis. And nobody's hiding behind you. And Butterfuss. I already have you down. And that's it. Okay, so how many we got here? 1, 2. So 8, so we have a quorum. Okay, so we have a quorum.
The door. Kingston.
I'm so sorry.
I just arrived.
Did she just sneak in
She
there?
snuck in.
Okay, good, because I was going to say, I'm like losing it. I went from David to Jeff, like that.
It was like magic.
It was
Sorry,
magic.
Dr. Murphy, can you hang on 1 second?
Certainly.
Issue. Yeah.
Sorry, Dr. Medor.
Give me 1 second.
So you're from Hudson Valley?
Compliance.
Yeah. All right. Over at which
She
one?
took over for Amy Gutman.
Oh, okay. All right, well, welcome. Welcome.
Hang on 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No worries. Oh, here. She sent me the thing right here. I'm looking at the email right now. It's telling me you're coming. So, congratulations on directorship.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
You all set?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to be able to have the minutes reviewed and any acceptance, deletions, corrections, revisions, please let me know. Can I get a motion to accept them?
You gotta verbalize for me, Dr. Moore. Thanks.
Dr. Vora, Dr. Vora, yes. Dr. Dietrich, yes. Second. Thank you, guys. Starting this morning, we've got a bunch of things, so I'm going to roll right into the old business as our agenda set. The BLS protocols were approved at the CMAC and SEMSCO level, so they're going to go forward. Has everyone seen them? Does anyone need a copy sent to them? We can send out an email copy for people if you need to see them. It's the first time in probably, I don't know, what did we decide, 11 years?
17 years.
17?
A really long time.
Yeah, that have been redone in the state of New York, and kudos to the TAG committee who did that. It was like a pretty tumultuous amount of work. Thank you to everybody. I know he hates it when I say it, but a special thanks to Dr. Fulligar. So that'll be, rolling out. The one thing we will have to work on as a protocol committee and for our region is to decide how we disseminate all the information, make sure everyone's on the same page, and we will do, probably similar to what we did a long time ago when BLS was added to the collaborative protocols, do some round robin kind of visits with some educational sessions. So if anybody's interested in doing any of those, because I know everybody likes that, okay, cool. Please let me know. I think it's a process that's so important, and I think that for a very long time, I guess 17 years, BLS has not been upgraded in the state. So it's really important that we bring them along. I will talk a lot more about them when we go into the CMAC report, because they took up most of CMAC, what we discussed with the BLS protocols. I think that we just need to make sure we get the information out there, disseminate it, and have everybody working towards the same goal. And having the collaborative protocols means that across New York State, with the only exception of New York City, we will be on the same protocols. All right. Service upgrades. So this morning, we have 2 ALS upgrades that are here to be voted on. And as members of the committee, we had 2 tags review the applications and all the accompanying documents to make sure everything was in order.
Andrew has a report on his tag.
Okay. Hi. So, without further ado, Andrew was the first tag that was set up to do one of the ALS upgrades. Go ahead. Just everybody who stands up to speak, please introduce yourself so that she can add it to the minutes and that we all...
Hi, my name is Andrew Tarasoff. I was the chairperson for the tag for the Village of New Square ALS upgrade. I actually
Andrew, you have to slow down.
This is going to be a thing.
Take that coffee away. Take that coffee away.
It's a liability.
Bear with me if I interrupt you, but you're going to have to slow down.
That's fine. My name is Andrew Tarasoff. I was the chairperson for the Village of New Square's ALS upgrade. I'm actually going to move over this way. I do apologize. I apologize more for you because I...
But you said that nice and slowly, so
I'm
you're
kinda loud
getting
in the
it. You're
morning.
getting it. It's okay.
If there was anybody who was on the tag, would you like to raise your hand? Claim acknowledgement? No? Perfect. Okay.
So you guys are not claiming acknowledgement. That's the issue.
That's great. I know one person here who didn't. Okay, so just to go through, yeah, perfect. Just to go through some of these, for those that are not aware, the Village of New Squares in Rockland County, they're currently a BLS agency looking for ALS upgrade. Their ALS is currently supplied by Chevra Hutzola of Rockland County under the medical direction of Jeff Raybridge. According to the U.S. Census Bureau information, the Village of New Square is approximately 0.4 square miles, 256 acres. They currently have, according to the Village of New Square ALS upgrade application, approximately 8,300 residents. They run between 1,200 to 1,400 calls per year, and they do actually service 4 non-hospital care centers. Our tag meeting, we were very lucky. This was a very straightforward process. We all agreed that there was really no major issues. The only concern that was voiced was on the initial application there was a type of service which had both volunteer/independent and volunteer/municipal, which we really didn't feel was an issue going forward. It was just something that needed clarification on the paperwork, which everybody agreed, including Mr. Hughes, that it was going to be a non-issue moving forward. We also did not feel that there was a need to have an agency meeting. Everything that we had was very straightforward. The application was incomplete, so we didn't really have any concerns and feel that there was a need for clarification at an agency meeting. We had our public meeting on December 17th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There were no public comments or concerns voiced regarding the ALS upgrade. To the best of my knowledge, and you feel free to correct me, during the 30-day comment period, again, no public comments or concerns were voiced regarding the upgrade. Based on the upgrade tag, we found that the agency meets the requirements for HV Remac for a paramedic level service, and it's the official recommendation of the Technical Advisory Committee to approve the agency application for ALS upgrade.
Okay, thank you. Wow, it's the first time we've ever had a PowerPoint presentation after these. That's pretty impressive. Thank you for all the work.
Off the record.
Wait, are we off the record?
Yes, it's okay.
This was a friendly competition between myself and Mr. Machado. So when he advised me that we had to do a presentation, I loosely said, game on. So
So he already won, Nelson? You know, Nelson used to work with me now. There's an endearment in my heart for him. Okay, we'll go back on the record. So, what we need to do then is move this forward. So we don't need to vote? I thought we had to vote.
Well, we do have to vote.
Oh, it doesn't have to be a roll call
Right,
vote?
it's not a
Okay.
roll call vote,
So,
it's just a yea, nay vote, and then we submit
okay.
it to the
So
website.
with all the proper paperwork and everything in order, the tags approval and recommendations, I would like to, can you make a motion for me? I'm not supposed to make a motion.
Make a motion to approve Vonnie Mess's application for paramedic level
I'm
service.
sorry, who's that person? What did you say?
Village of New
Oh.
Square EMS.
I didn't understand what you said.
He was doing a little
I was reading the
abbreviation.
abbreviation.
Okay.
Just trying
I
to be
thought,
brief.
you do a second?
I want to second that.
Okay, all those in favor? So, we got unanimous. Thank you. All right, moving on. So now, the second upgrade we had formed a tag for was the Alamo certificate doing business as Vassar EMS. Nelson, you want to come up?
Andrew's setting up the presentation right now.
Oh, okay.
Working on it. I have people for that.
Oh, great.
You have a remote? Works. I have a remote. Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Come on in.
I'm finding something to open it because I don't use PowerPoint.
Yeah. What up? What up?
Unless we're able to open it directly through this.
PowerPoint stuff, bringing it up.
Yeah, we're high tech now.
It's a format issue.
We don't.
Well, I don't have anything PowerPoint related. No.
Well, Eric said something.
Formatting will be off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, I can do it
Hey,
simultaneously also.
Eric, on side,
See if it works.
we don't have a name of somebody from Westchester Medical for representation on the committee.
Tina
Yeah, we have someone.
Gift.
Kukuza.
Here, right in there.
My taste.
Fabulous, thank you.
Yes, you made it.
Go ahead. It's Tina,
Kukuza.
yeah, you got her?
Yeah,
Okay.
great. She took over.
If it decides
Okay.
to self-identify and it wants to work, I'll let you know.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so I'm gonna move forward extemporaneously as Andrew figures out the technology.
He wants to win the competition, so he's probably not going to bring up your
I know,
presentation.
I know.
So just go ahead.
Sabotage.
You can tell us what the tag did.
All right, so we received a tag for an upgrade for paramedic level service from Alamo Ambulance Service. The certificate has been in use through contracts, basically through TransCare and then Mobile Life Support, doing one BLS transfer per month. When the application was received, the ALS tag met. We discussed the content of the application, raised a couple of concerns. Chief among them was that the applicant was requesting an ambulance transportation certificate, basically. They want to do interfacility critical care transport only. The plan was to start with one ambulance. Our concern was, all well and good that you want to do critical care transport, but you still need to meet the requirements of a 911 truck too in our system, reviewing the medical control plan. So we raised that point with them. Other points that we raised included the, help me out here, what else did we include? We included MOUs. You were on the tag.
I know.
We were concerned about MOUs. We were concerned about staffing and recruitment and retention of other agencies. We were concerned that they were going to continue with another contract to maintain the certificate. In other words, Alamo Ambulance Service is owned by Vassar Brothers Medical Center. They were contracting with Northern Dutchess paramedics to run this critical care truck. So the concern was, is this certificate basically at risk for hijacking? In other words, can Northern Dutchess paramedics now start transporting or doing transport work and 911 work in the other counties using this certificate? And then the last part of this was because they were entering into contract with Northern Dutchess paramedics, we were concerned that policies and procedures in place for NDP would simply be used for Alamo. And we needed to stress to the applicant that because they are a separate entity, that entity itself is required to meet all the statutory and regulatory requirements of an ambulance service in New York State and in the Hudson Valley region. Applicant responded, thank you.
I lied. It shows again.
Okay.
I double clicked it a bunch of times.
Down to cycle through.
Down.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. So here you go. The purpose of the application was to, again, provide a streamlined patient transfer mechanism for patients requiring urgent interventions and services not available at the sending facility. The governance, again, the certificate is maintained by Vassar Brothers Medical Center. It does have a DBA of Vassar EMS. The COO is the CEO of HealthQuest Systems, and Dr. Arshad's going to be is the medical director of the service. Am I speaking too quickly, or are you good?
You're good so far.
All right, thanks. Again, it's one critical care ambulance. The plan is to either staff this ambulance out of Vassar Brothers Medical Center or Ellenville Regional Hospital, I'm sorry. They were specific in stating in their application that they're not intent on pursuing 911 work. Again, our concern from the medical control plan perspective is what happens when the crew goes out to lunch and they get flagged down. So we wanted to make sure that they were going to meet the requirements within the medical control plan for a paramedic level service. And again, they did respond saying that that was going to be the case. As stated previously, NDP is going to be providing the staffing of the unit. And NDP is currently an authorized paramedic level service within the region. We met on December 3, and then the concerns raised were the need for mutual aid MOUs. Currently, there is no mutual aid MOU in place, although the applicant did respond that they would enter into the MOUs. And the purpose for this, one of the concerns, and I think it was chiefly my concern, was what happens when the ambulance is transporting a critical care patient and there's a breakdown somewhere on the mountain. We're talking one ambulance on NDP's primary response area is Rhinebeck, Northern Dutchess, Columbia County. How long would it take them to send an ambulance down to complete that transfer? With MOUs, they would be able to handle that a little bit more quickly or more time sensitive using local services. Conflicting call information was listed in the application. It was kind of an error. Again, they're doing one BLS transfer right now. And then at some point in the application, they said they weren't doing anything. It turns out they are doing those 12 calls. Available for disasters versus limited to critical care transport. In the application, they stated that the ambulance would be available in the event that there was a disaster within the region for response. But again, you're limited to critical care. Are you going to have the equipment to do the 911 stuff? So that was addressed as well. The policies and procedures and the impact on recruitment and retention. On the recruitment and retention component, we were kind of concerned that the ALS provider pool was going to be more diluted than it already was by adding another ALS service. And the applicant responded appropriately. Basically, that shortage has pre-existed, and their intent is not only to use EMS staff to do the transfer, but also allied healthcare professionals and licensed providers. So these are the points that they responded to. Any questions about that?
So when you say they're using dedicated critical care staff, that means like a nurse practitioner or a PA from the intensive care unit?
My understanding was more respiratory therapists, a nurse if necessary, but I don't believe that they're going to be sending PAs or NPs. Dr. Arshad?
Correct, yeah. So paramedic EMT basic staff with flex up to respiratory therapy if needed, or critical care nurse if needed.
And what was the answer for, is it okay that I ask questions now?
Absolutely.
Okay, what was the question, or what was the answer to the question of, because our way that we've always done it is everyone's a full service EMS agency. And under our, well, not really bylaws, but our, what the heck is that protocol? Thank you, medical control plan. We have people in that capacity. This is kind of a deviation from that, right?
It is in the operation model.
Okay,
However, they'll also meet the requirements of a 911 ambulance.
okay.
So they wouldn't necessarily be responding to a 911 call if made.
But they're gonna make sure they uphold the standards and everything we expect every 911 agency to do.
They have to
Correct.
comply with Part 800 anyway.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, we just need to make sure that we do everything the same.
Yeah.
We can't have special things for anyone else, because that'll come back to bite us when
Yeah.
we're all
And I
sitting.
believe our understanding on the thing, when we checked with the state on this, that they could decide to do.
Correct.
They're an ALS agency. If they decide they're only going to do interfacility transports, that's an option. But as far as the state's concerned, they're certificated as a
Ambulance,
MS service.
as an ambulance service.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was, okay.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Public meeting was held on December 27th. Again, thank you to Karen for providing me the date that I can remember. Concerns raised were, the two primary concerns raised in the public meeting were the 400 calls and sustainability. In other words, how you can sustain the unit for 400 calls, and does that meet the threshold in order to maintain skills?
You lost me, Nelson.
Sorry,
How do you sustain the unit for 400 calls, what?
with 400 calls per year, and maintain the skills of the providers on the truck. Dr. Arshad responded to that appropriately, as it was listed in the application as well. Health Quest is going to be subsidizing the unit and will absorb the losses as a corporate entity in order to provide better care in the region. That was number one. Number two, as far as skills maintenance, quality improvement, quality assurance, they'll make sure their staff is trained and will be evaluated routinely. Patient transportation, the other concern was raised was what's to stop Vassar from grabbing all the patients and bringing them back to Vassar directly with this unit. And Dr. Arshad's response was that the units will be held to both protocol, but also in the interest of the patient, they'll be transporting the patients to the most appropriate facility. Here are the responses. Any questions?
Any questions from the body of the,
No. At the end, the TAG felt that they're willing to meet the requirements. They're willing to integrate within the EMS system as it stands as an ALS service, again, with directed care for interfacility critical care transport.
I'm sorry, I don't.
you have to introduce who you are.
Sharon Fraser from the Region. One of the locations that were indicated was interfacility transports from Ellenville Hospital. What is the numbers that are expected of transfers from there? Is it a high volume, low volume?
They didn't give us any specific transport from Ellenville directly. They spoke globally within the system that they were expecting 400 patients to be transported.
Roughly what a day.
Yeah, so like 1.8 transfers per day.
Any other questions? So the TAG's final recommendation was that they met all the requirements and that they'll uphold to the standards that we have for all 911 agencies, and your recommendation was to approve it.
Based on the fact that they're meeting the requirements of the Remax medical control plan.
Okay. So I need a motion to move it forward.
I move that we approve it
Okay.
as recommended by the TAG.
And second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Why aren't you voting?
Stating, I'm a direct competitor.
Okay. Okay. All right, so the motion passes. And one abstention. Or you could recuse yourself.
That's what I was trying to do.
Okay. Under the radar, till Murphy points it out. Okay, thank you, everyone. And again, appreciate you guys and all the help with the TAG committees and such. Okay, moving right along, evaluation subcommittee report. Dr. Ashad?
Yes. Flurry of activity at the end of the Q4 2018.
Acute care access centers on ERU.
So there were two cases brought to review for the evaluation subcommittee based on the recommendation actually of the Department of Health and the State Bureau of EMS. So case number 1 had to do with a concern to an ALS provider's skill sets and qualifications to provide ALS care. This was regarding a paramedic in Ulster County. The call type which generated the complaint was an elderly patient with dyspnea who also had significant cardiac comorbidities. The paramedic responded. There were multiple components to the complaint, but did not bring into the home the monitor or oxygen, requested the patient to walk approximately 80 to 125 feet from the back of the home to the ambulance. No 12-lead EKG was performed in the home. Did not upload the EKG to the PCR. In addition, the patient was not brought to the hospital that they had requested. The reason this was brought to our attention from the Bureau of EMS is because they were pursuing action against the paramedic and thought that this met qualifications for review at the evaluation subcommittee level as well. Once the patient arrived at the hospital, the EM physician reviewed the PCR and found that the patient actually had multiple episodes of VT, or ventricular tachycardia, that went unrecognized by the paramedic. We offered an opportunity to the paramedic to come and speak to the evaluation subcommittee, and the paramedic did not respond to that request. Also, in addition, the medic had been involved in a previous case in which there was an 18-year-old overdose that was essentially terminated with minimal intervention and minimal assessment, just coloring the flavor of the paramedic. As a board, we voted to restrict ALS privileges for a period of 6 months, pending review by the agency's QA and QI director, as well as EMS medical director for that agency. And the medic was to complete a remediation program and to be checked on multiple points on whether he was capable of providing ALS care within the region. We additionally sent a letter to the neighboring regions informing them of our conclusion for this paramedic. Any questions regarding this case?
Who's the medical director again?
It was Dr.
Stutt.
Eric, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's been informed and acknowledged
Yeah.
the responsibility. A second case that was also brought to us by the Bureau of EMS is a Sullivan County case. The social dynamics are complex. I'm going to try and keep it simple. It was a trauma response. An initial ALS ambulance and as well as law enforcement were dispatched to the scene. There ended up being 2 patients. The first ambulance which arrived transported the primary patient, and there was a call made for a second ambulance. The request was for a BLS ambulance at that point in time based on the dispatch records. Given that it is more of a rural agency, responders who were volunteering and at home at the time took the call, and the paramedic in question drove to her station to pick up her ambulance and then subsequently drove to the scene. She did not, although, pick up her ALS equipment and gear at that station because the call was a BLS call type. Upon arrival to the scene, they assessed the second patient, brought him to the back of the ambulance. The patient was handcuffed. The complaint was regarding potential patient abandonment because the ALS provider elected to drive the ambulance and relegated the responsibility to technical operation to the BLS provider. The patient had a drop in mental status. We felt ultimately reviewing the case, best practice was not followed. Even if the ALS provider had insufficient equipment, it would have been appropriate for her to be in the back of the ambulance with the patient for a higher level assessment, medical decision making, and intervention with basic BLS skills like airway support and ventilation. The paramedic acknowledged that in hindsight she should have been in the back of the ambulance, was responsive to our admonishment, and promised that she would try better, especially in the volunteer setting when responding to a call from home, to remember that she would uphold her level of skill. should she be called so in the future.
So it's a little peculiar to me. The guy is handcuffed still in the back of the ambulance when they were
Correct. And there was a
transported?
there was a law enforcement officer in the back of the ambulance. as
Okay,
well.
so they accompanied
It was in
them.
custody.
Correct.
So he was, yeah, okay. I thought they were,
Yeah.
so then I was like, well, maybe the woman didn't feel comfortable being in the back
Yeah,
of
that.
the ambulance
Thanks for
with.
clarifying. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
law enforcement. The patient was
Okay.
in relative control, not in super excited delirium or anything along those
Okay,
lines.
all right. Yeah, that's kind of a snafu
Had a-
of issues, you know.
Had a depressed GCS and ultimately needed supportive ventilations and an
Okay.
advanced airway in the emergency department.
Okay, they went, it was Catskill? They went to Catskill?
Jeff, remind me?
Initially, they went to Catskill.
Okay,
Patient was then subsequently transferred to Westchester.
okay.
This was a trauma,
Correct, sir.
so this person had traumatic injury.
Correct.
And what was the nature of the traumatic injury?
I don't have that. We attempted to get the emergency department records to see and verify all the potential injuries, but there was a reported head trauma and injury with some exam findings notable for so and a depressed Glasgow coma scale.
And got intubated.
And got intubated in the emergency department at Catskills Regional and was ultimately transferred to a level 1 trauma center.
Right, so GCS less than 13 with a head injury is a level 1 criteria to begin with, so.
Correct, yeah.
What prompted the reporting in this case? Was it somebody from the healthcare system, or was it
It was
the
a
patient's family, or?
So this is, for what the Bureau of EMS has informed to us or brought to our attention, there was a concern for patient abandonment by another first responder or public safety individual that prompted the complaint and initial investigation at the state DOH level, and they thought it was relevant for us to review and forward us the case as well.
Okay,
Okay, additional
So you've-
cases next semester as well.
okay. And so your follow-up, you will just make sure that this woman, follows through?
She was very responsive, and I think the tenor of the conversation is she was apologetic. She appreciated that she could have done better. We emphasized additionally that the situation is complex because she was responding off hours as a volunteer from her home.
Yeah. What was the transport time, do you know?
Less than, just around 30 minutes or so. And there was in fact a pertinent detail. There was an ALS intercept about, 2/3 of the way through on the ambulance as well.
So, I would just comment that off-duty volunteer provide irrelevant information. There's a duty to act there, right? Whether you're still professional, whether you're paid or volunteer, and that, is there a plan of monitoring or that this is going to go into place to ensure that this?
Yeah, so the QA and QI director for the agency was also present for that conversation, and there was an action plan developed to both increase the awareness of responding off hours and the duty and the proclivity and the need to act as needed. And additionally, they're going to be working on their documentation, which was another point that we felt was underwhelming. PCR documentation at both the BLS and the ALS level, we felt their agency needed to increase the bar at which they were operating.
One other thing, they were going to change their procedure so that whenever there was a paramedic on board, that the second set of equipment would be on board.
Correct. As best practice, we recommended that if you're responding and there's an ALS provider on the truck, make sure you have the right equipment to do the job.
So she called for ALS though. She rode in the front, but then called for an ALS backup.
So the initial crew on scene determined that there was a second patient and made a call for a BLS dispatch for the second patient.
But she, en route, called for an ALS intercept, or it just happened?
The EMT in the back of the truck called for the ALS intercept.
Like,
So,
that's
really an issue.
awfully interesting.
Complex.
So is Sullivan County though.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you.
Any questions, concerns, any other comments, or we can move on? Okay, New York State Department of Health enforcement notifications. I only have one this morning. It's for Citywide Mobile Response Corporation out of Bronx, New York, assessed a civil penalty of $7,000 for violations of Part 800. Okay, Dr. Larson, Helicopter Committee.
I made an outreach to Air Methods. There is, we don't have a medical director coming from Air Methods to the program, and so we are going to reconstitute the committee and try to hold some type of regular meetings throughout the year, and that's basically where we stand. I don't know if there's a representative from Air Methods here. Oh, okay. Hi, okay.
Introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, Aiden O'Connor with Air Methods. I'm the Regional Business Development Manager for the Southern Tier, which encompasses both the Wallkill base and the Harris base.
Okay.
Joe was the next one from,
No.
Who's taking over?
So who is currently medical director?
Dr. Berkowitz still remains our medical director for the purpose of narcotics, and we are currently in the transition of gathering a new medical director at the moment. We do have other medical directors from the Albany or out west that we could certainly utilize in the meantime, but we're hoping to have a conclusion probably at the end of this month or early March.
Okay, so as soon as we get that person into place, we will convene a meeting of the helicopter committee, and certainly that will be open to anyone who wants to participate. And we will try to reestablish a regular, probably quarterly meeting.
Okay.
just have a minute.
Yeah.
I've also been dealing with Aiden, and next to him is Joe Soda. We figure we're going to get away with this.
If you want to stand up and introduce yourself.
Joe Solder, Chief Flight Nurse for Hackensack Air Med 1. We are your New Jersey partners, also in the North License, came to the committee about 6 years ago. We are now a hospital-based affiliate with Air Methods, so you'll be seeing us in Rockland and Orange, as you already have.
Okay. And I've been working with them, and we've been getting some reports on them. And just to give you some idea on the numbers that are coming in December, Hackensack had 2 completed missions with, which was 2 adults, and one came out of Orange and one came out of Rockland. And LifeNet had 58 requests and 11 transports, and they were all adult transports, and they came out of all of our counties. Right? So we'll be able to do that, and we'll work with you on the committee, however.
All right.
I don't know, do you want to, can we just go into some of your program? Do you want to talk about the advocate program?
Certainly. I have a few programs. I'm not sure if you want to do it now or in committee. One of them, though, is probably the most prevalent. As you might hear, especially in our healthcare setting, that air medical transport is very expensive. Something that we realized 2 years ago is CNN, MSNBC, all those different places talk about the cost of air medical services. So Air Methods, I was a flight paramedic out of Albany. And it got
Sorry,
to
you
the
have to slow down for me.
My apologies.
That's okay.
Used to be a flight paramedic out of the Albany base, and it got to the point so badly that when you get to the patient's bedside, the family and or the patient was terrified to go buy air medical transport because of the potential cost. So something that Air Methods has done, and we're the first to do so, is what's called a patient advocacy program. And that's the ability to, when a patient gets transported, we no longer send them a bill, we send them a letter. The letter states, "We are so sorry for your injury or illness." And then we connect you with a person who is going to advocate on your behalf to the insurance company. Because we know, just like ambulances, they often get denied the first or second time. So we work with our medical directors, we work with our flight teams to write letters of appeal. And since doing so, we used to get 2 to 3 complaints in the Hudson Valley and Southern Tier region per month about bills. Now we haven't had 0 in 2018 because we're taking that proactive step to make sure we're working on their behalf. No one will go to collections unless they decide not to work with the patient advocate and or if the bill gets sent directly to them and they decide not to cash it. So we've had those circumstances where people have been flown once or twice and they said, well, I'm buying a boat. Why would I give it back to you? And we're like, that's not how this billing, works. You have to send the bill back to Air Methods Corporation.
You mean check?
You get a check from the insurance company.
Yeah.
Not the boat. We don't want
They
the
don't
boat.
invoice it over.
No, you were saying bill, and I thought, no, you mean check.
Oh, it's a check. Yes, my apologies. So Ultimately, it's a fantastic program. Certainly when the committee forms, we'd be happy to send a lot of information through there. We have patient excellence that we just recently did, an RSI checklist that we've done, and having criteria, you might have heard about it. So today I do have information and magnets. Before I leave here today, I'll make sure you all have them. But we'd be happy to take a few minutes of every single Remac if you have the opportunity to update you on some of the exciting things that are happening in the air medical world.
When we met last year sometime, you had some statistics as to the percentage of patients that had a bill over about $250 or something. And it was, I don't know if you have those available, but it was pretty impressive because really almost everybody basically that chose to work with you guys ended up having an out-of-pocket bill that was like under 200, you know, under $500, $250, significantly lower than the sort of rumor mill and what you read about.
What I can do is I'll give you my business cards upon departure today. Certainly, if your hospital is interested in seeing what your out-of-pocket expenses have been for your patients, please feel free to reach out to us. We can give you that information that's particular to your hospital itself. But like you mentioned, it's once it's out there, it's pretty spectacular to see how much comparison little money they pay out of pocket.
Okay, thank you. RTAC. Any good? No me. Okay.
No.
Quality improvement report, Jeff.
Work progresses on the new Nemesis 3.4 bridge. Added Health EMS and Zoll data, along with image trend and EMS charts. We do keep finding some validation rules that are problematic, and we convene usually like a little web seminar to fix those rules. They still are cropping up. We fix them as they come. And that's really been about it for the past 6 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Protocol committee, Michael.
Well, I was hoping that you were going to do SEMSCO first, and I could say no report because you covered all the materials.
Okay, so why don't we just put it together, because I have so much to do for
So I think obviously the majority of the information is from the SEMSCO, so I'll just defer to you.
Okay, so basically, on January 15th, we had our meeting, and you know, as I mentioned before, all the BLS protocols were moved through and approved. We did have a lot of conversation from the committee from pediatrics and Dr. Cooper, EMSC, and, you know, those issues were addressed, discussion about some of the pediatric arrest issues, and pediatric assisted technology devices, some verbiage correction, some discussion about the pediatric transport, especially with respect to trauma. And one of the things that was really important that we will emphasize with the new BLS protocols is the fact that as an entity, we, besides the collaborative committee, the entire CMAC was in approval of that we really work cardiac arrest at the scene. And we're going to push forward to try and disseminate that information. It's kind of like almost, you know, coming full circle again, just like with CPR. But we found that trying to do CPR in the back of an ambulance does not work. And that definitely hands-on CPR is better than machines. And for the purposes of ROSC, that working the cases at the scene, taking that time with a very high-quality CPR and integrated system is more efficacious than scooping and running. So we're, as a group, and from the collaborative protocols put forward that we want to really disseminate and emphasize this information. Any comments?
Yeah, I was gonna wait until the end.
Okay.
Yes.
I could see you. Yeah. So, you know, we did go through all of that, and again, it was approved. We talked a bit about Ryan Greenberg from the state talked a bit about some of the things he's looking into in this near future, looking at the mutual aid policy and how it goes through each REMSCO. Still discussion about the transfusion services, which we didn't do much on because we discussed it at the last meeting and it didn't, it's still in the working stages. That the DOH is totally transitioning to electronic forms. So when the DOH comes and does inspections, they will be electronic forms. There were some staffing changes at the Bureau. One of the new things coming out is it was approved and drafted that EMTs can now start to work at the age of 17, which is a new entity, which brings up a whole another load of people to try to prosper and get interested in the whole career path. So they're hoping for that to restart a new flow of providers. Trauma was discussed with both, he's talking about meeting with all the directors and managers and program coordinators, and going forward, the process of, he's developing pilot programs for databases, and the PCRs coming into a database so that all the materials can be utilized and retrieved in a positive way. They asked us to fill out a Survey Monkey to decide what we wanted to see as our QA metrics going forward into 2019. And the EMS Memorial this year, as you know, EMS Week's in May. There are 1,800 agencies in the state of New York. The EMS Memorial this year, though, will be dedicating memorial to 9 deaths, all related to 9/11 exposure. So it's the first time that's really, I guess, been the focus of, we've found a clear-cut nidus for each one of these deaths was related to exposure at the site. Transfer policies and handoffs, we're going to be talking about and looking at the regulation of agencies and how we transfer care, and going forward, you know, just make sure we have best practice policies in place. They did discuss that New York State will sign off on the stroke designation centers. There'll be, as you know, a primary stroke center, a thrombectomy capable center, and then a comprehensive stroke center. The designation will be for 2 years. After that, they are turning over the designation and the accreditation to whomever you use from the government as an accrediting agency. If you use, you know, JCHO, if you use DNV, it'll be turned over to them in the future. So many people are trying to get through the state to get a freebie now to get the designation before it goes to that form. But that's how it's going to go forward in 2 years.
Do they have an exact date?
He didn't say a date.
No, but there's going to be a, just like
Should be.
trauma, when they switch to ACS, there's going to be a changeover period where as
Yeah.
long as you put your application in, there'll be a 2 to 3 year process.
He said that he felt that towards the end of March, they should be able to put the process out there, but he didn't specifically say a date.
They plan to mirror what they did with trauma, with stroke, using AHA or drug commission.
And then we talked about a bunch of collaborative protocol processes at medical standards, and some of the changes were seizure protocol allowing 2 doses of Versed, organophosphate exposure, having a dose of Versed with adults, bradyarrhythmias not utilizing an ionotropic agent, And coming forward is a fever protocol, which will have the addition of Motrin and Tylenol for peds patients, and it will be weight-based. And one of the suggestions was to also make more of a unified approach for having intranasal in every protocol that we could, to utilize its ability for quick administration, and I think that's it.
Wait, clarification, so intranasal administration of what?
Spelling out the word intranasal instead of using IN to be more consistent with.
And making sure it's, when it's, because they keep
So it
putting
doesn't get
IN
mistaken for
for
IM,
IV, or,
IV.
yeah,
Spell out intranasal.
sorry.
One at a time.
You're going to spell out the word intranasal wherever IN appears in the protocols to error.
Makes it more
avoidance.
uniform.
Okay.
And then-
Now, did they talk about how people, pre-hospital care is going to measure these fevers?
Yes. Thermometer, if available and equipped, is how it's going to read like the other protocols. So if they have a thermometer, many agencies do, and record a fever, they can give Tylenol or Motrin.
We're trying not to make anyone have extra monetary expenditures, so each one of these things added on say if available and equipped.
The other issue that came up was, I believe it's 122 is the bill number on essential services, making EMS an essential
yes.
service in New York State.
Yep.
Which, in theory, one, it's hard to, if you look at the list of what already is an essential service, it's hard to believe that EMS is not on that list. However, this bill has its financial implications. It's essential service, I'm trying to go slow, for the purpose of applying for state money and aid and grants. So it kind of got tabled because it's unclear what the impact would be regarding other fire-based services that are providing EMS and other agencies. So it was mentioned, but tabled till May's meeting.
But it was pretty interesting that it isn't under that
Yeah.
list of essential service. That was
Which
the
includes,
one
like,
thing.
Public utilities and all kinds
Yeah.
of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So Pam, just to make it clear for everybody, the collaborative protocol updates were also approved at the SEMSCO meeting. And so there is now a process which the region needs to follow that I'll defer to Bill about to move that process along.
Right, we will put them out for a 30-day comment, and it will go to the people that are required by New York State, which is all the hospitals, all the providing agencies. We'll wait for those comments, and if there's any comments come back, we'll address them. If there's not, then we will be able to implement those protocols.
I think we established an August 1 sunset date for the current.
For BLS.
For BLS.
That's the
Right,
BLS.
that's
yeah.
correct. The
So
ALS,
BLS
people
was
were,
left open.
yeah, people could really move out the ALS much faster.
With that in mind, since everybody, all the regions except for New York City area are on the collaborative protocols, the state has asked us to take a look at that from the program agency point of view, and we have put together a committee that's going to be looking at a suggested process that would eliminate not the comment period and not necessarily everybody being able to voice their opinion on them, but some of the process, which involves a lot of certified mail and things like that just absorb a lot of time and money that probably no one reads. So that whole process is going to be put into a structure that will give us dates as to when the protocols will be coming out and schedule it around the year, so you should know what time they're coming out and match up with both the RTAC, the EMC for kids, and the STAC meetings.
EMSC. The other thing was, because, one of the steps is to send out certified return receipt mail. So, they need to be upgraded because everything we do now is electronic. So it's just those protocol procedural things need to be looked at.
So also with regards to the implementation of the BLS and ALS protocol, actually I'm going to yield to Dr. Arshad. Him and Dr. Fullagar are working to develop statewide training programs. We'll be a part of that process and then see what gaps need to be filled in, but it will be very similar to the last rollout. And so maybe Dr. Arshad can give us a brief status on where that's going from here.
So this is really exciting, similar to the ALS collaborative protocol rollout, where we were able to record videos, training, podcasts to really help augment the medical decision-making and bring the 3D upgrades to life for our providers. We've already secured another $25,000 grant, and the Hudson Valley will be leading, along with the Syracuse region, the BLS collaborative protocol updates, where we will be similarly recording podcasts, recording training videos in 4K, and really highlighting the theme will be evidence-based medicine meets best practice. Be the best BLS you can be. And focusing in on all the interventions that you can really perform as a BLS provider to bring that advanced medical decision-making and life-saving scope of practice to your patients. If you guys have excellent EMTs within your organization that you'd like to nominate to be part of this training video process, please do forward those to me. The dates are already scheduled. It's March 13th, 14th, and 15th, where we'll be recording those training videos. And again, last year we focused on amazing paramedics in the region to be part of the videos. If each agency will just say, okay, I have great EMTs that I'd like to bring forward and help represent the state on this collaborative rollout, we'd love to hear from you guys.
It's amazing the dates you pick. I'm in Haiti for a medical mission. Thank you. Okay. Last year was the same. I was out of the country. Thank you. I think that one of the things that'll be exciting is collaborating together and bringing all this to the forefront. One of the things I learned is there's a lot of things in the BLS protocol that they've been allowed to do now that I never knew before. So it's with this new rollout, it'll be very exciting with the upgrade. Any other comments?
Yes, so at the protocol meeting this last week as well, Bill, did you want to report on this?
No, I wanted to make a comment on the adjuncts. Any of the physicians here that are medical directors for BLS services, we have a lot of BLS services that are not utilizing those adjuncts. So if you could be instrumental in the training and maybe putting forth that they can use those adjuncts and how to use them and that they should be using them. We actually have quite a few that aren't using, that do not carry naloxone at all on their rigs, which is kind of confuses me because it's an easy training process and it's supplied by the state through us. So there's no cost. There's nothing that the agencies have to do, but we have a fair amount of them. I mean, we're probably at maybe 35% that do not carry naloxone, and there's a lot that don't carry the CPAP that's available, and the 12-lead acquisition. I understand that one's a little bit more expensive, but some of the others that are available to BLS services, and they really should be carrying most of them. Right.
So there was a very lengthy discussion also at SEMSCO with regards to the, and I'll use the word that they use, the EMS crisis that exists in New York State. We began to discuss this at the protocol committee meeting last week and decided that we needed to move this process forward in this region. There certainly is a call for additional data to substantiate the crisis that we're in at a state level. However, obtaining that data will take a very long period of time, and those of us that participated last week felt that we really did not have that time to look at that data. While the data certainly is critical, we need to begin the process now and augment that conversation as the data becomes available. Collecting the data, as you can imagine, is a huge task when you look at across the state, because there are some counties that reported that they have about 50 primary safety public answering points. So that's pretty significant. So what we have decided to do is to ask Bill to form a systems subcommittee, a TAG, to pull together key leaders in the region, including EMS coordinators and physicians, and to hold an EMS summit in this room within the next 30 days sometime, and just begin to throw ideas up on the wall and look at all of the opportunities that we have to make a positive impact on this crisis that we're in. This crisis it goes from personnel to agencies not being able to get out, to reimbursement, to education, to everything. And so we want to hold a session where we can all just take any discussion which is outside of the box and throw it up on a wall and see if we can come up with a solution. So I'll turn it over to Bill to finish that conversation. We're working on a date. He's working on a list of people who are going to get this. Certainly we do want physicians from around this table to participate in that process. But this is a crisis, and we don't think that we can wait 30 days to begin it.
Yeah, and as Michael said, that we're out trying to solicit the people. We're trying to get the contact information that we need to put that all together, and hopefully in a very short period of time, I would say hopefully by the end of this week, we should have invitations out, and hopefully everybody will respond, and maybe the room will be too small. But if it is, we'll find another location that we can use. But yeah, we're going to want to move forward with that to understand what's going on, so everybody has an idea, or at least can voice an opinion on what they see as the problem. And it might be stuff that we haven't even seen yet. So it's very critical to the region.
So I think that Mike and Bill and Dr. Rich and Pam for sure are really being very nice about this process. I don't want to be fire and brimstone about this, so I won't. But I will say that there truly is a crisis. People today are not getting ambulances. Organizations are closing their doors. Fire companies are deciding to get out of EMS. And 911 centers are not able to send units to places. Like, this is actually happening. We're having this issue in Dutchess County. We have formed a group that's trying to look at other solutions, much like we have here at the region. And the idea of essential services being something that we should participate in and we should be recognized as is true. The concern from the group of the state was that if it became an essential service, would we be able to, in fact, cover those calls? Because we cannot. There are no people, there are no providers, the agencies are not getting the funding that they need. I believe that the budget, the federal budget, and perhaps the state budget has just reduced funding for EMS, and the reimbursement rates are still back into the area of the 90s or so. For what the cost of the service would be, which is just impractical at all. And so I really don't want this to be an underestimated bullet point of the meeting. This is something that truly we are going to have to work on, or there will be no us to work on it. And so I think this is amazing and great work by this region. Again, we are stepping forward and doing what needs to be done, and I think that's fantastic. I hope we're all able to be a huge part of this, because there will have to be some kind of change coming down the road, and we may not even know what that change is or looks like. I think we should probably get some millennials involved, because they're the ones that can really foresee things and change and move things forward. But
they might use holograms or something.
Okay. That's fine. It's totally fine. But I think the EMS system will not look like it used to. But I think that we have to move in that direction, and I think we really need to be a part of it because it is truly, truly in crisis. Just a couple other points that we had talked about. Part 800 changes to go along with the BLS protocols. I don't know when the last Part 800 changes were. Probably I don't know, when the EMS system began, but they're taking a bunch of stuff out, they're making it a little bit more appropriate for what's required for the ambulances. The PAC program, Pediatric Emergency Care Coordinators, is something that the state got a grant on, and it's to develop pediatric equipment, training, and recognition in particular areas. In our region, we signed up to the coordinators to help disseminate information and help agencies to get pediatric care and programs underway. The hospital hub system that we've talked about quite a bit here and there is a free system to be able to go in and look at PCRs from any providers, agency that come into your system. But yeah, it's an active process. The providers have to put it in there and you have to go search for it. That's through ImageTrend. We talked about ESO a bunch of times. They also have a very similar program where you have to actively go and look at stuff. ESO is working now with the state to work on a program statewide that is automated, and so you don't have to go search for data. It just automatically gets there back to the providers. And so that's something that I know that we're looking at a statewide level too. So if you hear any of those things, I'm happy to talk about the PCR stuff specifically if you need.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, one of the issues from the pediatric standpoint is really people going out and now training and teaching about proper immobilization of the child for transport. That's now being, Dr. Daly's been going around. There's been a bunch of educational opportunities for it. Okay, thank you, everyone. Any other comments about?
I have just one more quick
one.
Okay. Every time there's a CMAC and a SEMSCO meeting, there's a program agency meeting, which is the one that I go to the day before. And this time they had a county coordinators meeting the evening after our program agency meeting. There was a county coordinators meeting, and actually I think both county coordinators are here that were at that meeting. But the other 4 county coordinators within our region weren't at the meeting. So if you guys talk with them and work with them, if we can push them to attend those meetings and see what else is going on in the state, I think it would be a real big advantage. They had an organization and then it was kind of dissolved, and now they're trying to re-up that organization to the county coordinators can get involved in it and help on some of these issues.
Okay.
Yeah, the one thing I can't quite understand is this essential service thing. Now, I don't think we need to have that discussion here. We should probably have it in that emergency meeting, but that sounds just crazy. I mean, I don't, yeah, maybe there's some repercussions. Yeah, the repercussions are that someone's going to have to come up with some money. And money is what's going to, make things roll here and get EMS the kind of funding that they need, just like police and fire and all the other services they consider. So I think this is something that we really have to push. I mean, I don't know what the roadblocks are there. There may be some repercussions. Yeah, there are definitely going to be repercussions. But it's like, okay, so what? I think that's one of the things we really have to go advocate and, go to Albany with, that this is craziness, that this is not an essential service. I mean, it's the reason, it's one of the reasons why the paramedic service has and EMS services have been reduced to the position that it's been in all these years, and why paramedics are not getting paid decently. It's crazy. And I think we really have to push this thing.
Eric, it's a fantastic thing. You're absolutely right, 100%. One of the roadblocks that we'll get to, and I agree with you, I think we should push this forward because it does come down to money at the end of the day. One of the things that we'll have to fight against are, because this is a home rule state, that means that every city, town, village is really in charge of their own things. And if they have an unfunded mandate, they will rail against it. You'll never see that happen. I don't want to ever see it happen. That would be one of the roadblocks we're going to have to fight.
We have
Hudson Valley has an unusual, actually, I shouldn't say the whole Hudson Valley, because this has been, I've been pushing this for 10 years. I've been preaching it at state council every year. The problem is we don't realize, especially like in Rockland County, the agencies are independent with the exception of New Square and Piermont are municipal. So that brings a whole other thing, because they're independent agencies. They believe they're municipality because that's what everybody thinks them to be. When you go upstate, it's a lot of fire-based, and also in our region. It's money. There was legislation to do something for essential service, but if you read the fine print on it, it was only to give the municipalities an ability to get some money. It had nothing to do with the agencies. And I can tell you, in 23 years as a coordinator, every time I bring it up, because some things will be available to the fire service, like the RCC education piece, wasn't available to EMS because they're an independent agency and not municipal, they're contract-based to the towns. So it's critical that we make it essential. The fear is, and the pushback was from the government end, then it would be something they would have to pay for. And I can tell you, everything that I've tried to get over the years, I get pushback because it's not essential, including my own position. Had it not been for Dr. Purcell a few years ago, the county decided it's not essential, we don't have to have it, we're getting rid of it. She tucked it under the admin office in the health department. And that's the only reason we still exist in Rockland. So it's money, you're right. But essential, the day we all dry up and disappear, on a positive note, we had a fully empty class that just started, which is a positive thing for a number of years. But we need to push it, and we need to get it out there, and we need to make sure it covers the way we're structured. Not just municipality, not just government. It has to cover the agencies. It has to prove a need for the agencies.
Right, and that's, this current bill, the way it's written is essential service means it requires the municipality to provide that service to its citizens. They can choose to do it however they want. They can keep the money, they can give it to another agency, but it does not say anything goes to the agencies. It says the municipality is required to provide the service.
It's all for them.
Yeah.
That might be a big problem. Okay. Thanks, Kim.
And I can tell you from the coordinators meeting, I was on the conference end of it because I wasn't able to travel up. That was one of the deliverables or the priorities they're setting is to push essential services.
And not, I was going to change the topic.
I was going to say, so go.
Not
Before you change the topic, though, EMS, I want to say that the EMS coordinators are pivotal to our opportunity to move this information from this environment out to the field. We need them and they need us, and we need to form a strong partnership with them, and that's why we're asking them to be a part of this summit as well, because we both need each other in this process.
And we need EMS providers to show up in Albany on lobby day to tell their legislature that this is.
That is correct.
Well, I think the EMS coordinator is an integral link in that dissemination of information. So I agree, totally.
So when is lobby day?
I think it's in March sometime. Late
Well-
February, early March, I don't know the date.
Yeah, we should put that out. I mean, you know, if we have some advance, people are willing to go.
Did you have one more thing, or you're done?
Nope, I'm done.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So,
So another thing that we can improve upon, of course, is mass casualty training. I just wanted to pass the baton to my two colleagues, Sharon and John, who are planning quite a mass casualty exercise. It's going to be focused for Dutchess County, but really, we all know in a disaster situation, we are, of course, going to be calling on mutual aid from our surrounding counties. So encourage everyone to please distribute this amongst your provider staff. But Sharon and John, please tell us more and the dates and the specifics.
Oh, no. Well, actually, there's a couple of different stages of the whole process. We previously have had an EMS training day at the Dutchess County Department of Emergency Response Center 2 previous years. So we're going to have another one this May, and that's going to be all based on the theme of what our full-scale drill will be in 2020. And it's a hazmat training incident type of scenario. So we have many different players involved. Obviously, the Metro North, EMS, PD, we have the hospitals, Dutchess Community College, fire departments, yes. Thanks, sorry. So we've had a couple of different meetings already planning this, and May 4th, is going to be our EMS training day this year. That'll be at the Dutchess County Department of Emergency Response Center on Creek Road in Poughkeepsie. How many people did we have last time? Remember? 60, yeah?
70,
Somewhere in there. So we had a pretty good response with the EMS providers. We're definitely looking forward to it. We've got some good collaboration going. The full-scale drill will be very exciting in 2020.
And after our meeting last week, we noticed that it's great to have the training on May 4th, but for the drill to be in October of 2020, what's going to happen in between? We've decided in between that, have multiple training opportunities and tabletop exercises for each agency, so they can come in and go over what their role will be in this actual drill. So in technicality, it will be 3 separate drills happening at the same time. Fire department dealing with a rescue out of a train car, hazmat doing decon, and EMS doing treatment and transport.
And Sharon, in her perpetual humility, failed to highlight the best part of this exercise, and that is, of course, the date. It is going to have, the entire training day is going to have a heavy Star Wars theme. May the 4th be with you all.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, John. Open forum. Anything else?
I just wanted to comment on part of your report that you mentioned that this year all the people adding to the EMS memorial will be victims of 9/11. And one of those names is Dr. Michael Greenberg, who many of us know and have worked with. So, if you're available that day and able to attend, it would be great.
Yeah, Ryan, kind of emphasized that the participation would be really important because just to show solidarity, to show that this is still going on, if you think about it from, 18 years ago. So.
And unfortunately, this trend is likely to continue.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, exactly. Okay, anything else under open forum?
Yeah, there is going to be a meeting of the RTAC. That is going to be February 7th. That is Thursday. And it's from, I believe, from 10 to 12, and it's going to be at Orange Regional. So that's coming up very soon. Thursday, February 7th.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate all your help.
Was that you, Dr. Riker?
Yes.